under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's good to see you, and welcome back to another edition of Stateside Footy. And God damn it, man, I was fired up for this one all day. Quite a bit. I got to be honest with you, man. It's been a very good week, and of course, this week started off with a bang with Filippo Silva from Tactical Manager TV, excuse me, and then of course, we had the Carabao Cup, and of course. My beloved Tottenham Hotspur took care of business against the Doncaster Rovers. And of course, tonight we have this episode. And of course, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe buttons because, man, let me tell you, man, this channel is growing. And I'm absolutely thrilled. But most importantly, I'm grateful because without you guys and without the support of the U.S. soccer community, I'd just be some dude rambling. More oftentimes than not, I'm just some dude rambling. But nonetheless, I'm glad you're here. And of course, we have an interesting show tonight because we are going to talk a little bit about MLS's involvement with the U.S. national team. And of course, when you see the thumbnail and you see Cristian Roldan's mug, chances are you're probably thinking, okay, I'm going to try to make a case. But of course, we're going to be talking a little bit about this from a historical context because I keep hearing it all the time that there's an MLS quota, Don Garber controls the national team, blah, 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 blah. And there might be something to that. But for the most part, we're going to go back in time and we're going to talk a little bit about it. And we're also going to talk about whether or not there is room for specific players on this current roster. And of course, if there's going to be inclusion of MLS players on the World Cup roster. Before we do it, let's go ahead and look at the chat real quick. And of course, it's my buddy Adrian who says, "Good evening, Steve et al." Adrian, it's good to see you. And I hope you're doing well, man. I hope you're basking in the afterglow of the destruction of the Doncaster Rovers. I know Colm is not exactly too thrilled because, of course, he is from Doncaster, and I'm sure he was looking for a little bit of a win last night. But, of course, that's what happens when you come to the lane, and, of course, it's a cup tie. And these things sometimes tend to happen. And, of course, I'm not a big fan of the cup ties because I get a little nervous. But Tottenham handle their business. That's all I'm going to say. That's what Spurs do this year. All right. Before I do it real quick, I just got to say thank you to my local chapter of American Outlaws, AO Detroit. And of course, we're going to be doing some really good stuff with AO Detroit coming up in the next window. If not next window, then the November window. We're going to be potentially doing live streams from their bar down in Detroit. So that's going to be great. So I do want to thank AO Detroit for the cool shirt. All right. So let's get into it. And again, at the top of the show, I might have mentioned that if you saw the thumbnail to the show and you saw Cristian Roldan's mug, you probably assume that I'm trying to make a case for his inclusion on the World Cup roster. Now, of course, that's not the case. But that being said, from a historical context, there is, I guess, precedent for Major League Soccer players to be on the national team, also being included in the World Cup roster. And we're going to talk about that because this isn't a Mauricio Pochettino thing. It's not that. This goes all the way back. It's not a Greg Berhalter thing. It's not a Jurgen Klinsmann thing. It's not a Bob Bradley thing. It's not a Bruce Arena thing. This goes all the way back to 1998. And of course, if you guys remember, this year, Major League Soccer celebrated its 30th anniversary. And of course, this league has certainly changed in the 30 years that it's been around. And one of the things that I guess you can say turned the tide was when Major League Soccer and the powers that be developed Soccer United Marketing. And from that, that became the marketing arm of Major League Soccer. But there was also things that happened when Soccer United Marketing started purchasing certain things. And of course, I'm talking about CONCACAF, the Mexican Football Federation, and some of these other subsidiaries that Soccer United Marketing purchased. And from that, it became a little bit of a need. It became a little bit of a need for Major League Soccer to use the national team as a stage to sell the league, which is why when Major League Soccer first came into existence, that's why they were signing certain players from the 94 World Cup team, because they had something to sell. And they needed these players to sell. So that means what? Tony Miola, Tab Ramos, and some of those guys, Lexi Lawless came back from Italy. And I think Eric Winalda even came back. But that being said, because we had a domestic league, it was only going to be natural that Major League Soccer was going to have an impact on the national team. And that certainly was the case in 1998, as 16 members of Major League Soccer ended up making that 98 World Cup squad. And of course, the 98 squad historically flamed out. And of course, look at that. There's Adrian right there who says, fine, good first half, poor second half. Yeah, and your boy, Brendan Johnson, of course. Brendan scores at the end, by the way. But then in 2012, as Major League Soccer continued to develop, and it is what it is, right? Now, of course, something happened between 1998 and 2002, and that was the U.S. men's national team were determined to develop the next group of young players, and they had the residency program. It's the same program that Landon Donovan was developed in. Aguchi Onyewu, Kyle Beckerman, DeMarcus Beasley, and of course, those names were littered all throughout our World Cup rosters. And now that we had a domestic league, we can actually get them, first team minutes with inside the league. It didn't necessarily matter if the league was good. What mattered was minutes and form, and of course, those type of those players with those type of pedigree. It was going to be something a little bit different. And when you look at the 2002 World Cup squad, let me go ahead and pull this up. 11 members of Major League Soccer were on the, I guess you can say, the greatest World Cup squad. 11 members. Now, of course, we had guys who were in the Premier League, guys who were in the Bundesliga, guys who were in France, guys who were in the Eredivisie. But for the most part, there was a lot of guys, very key core guys, who were in Major League Soccer at that point. And again, this guy was in Major League Soccer. Developed in Milwaukee. Initially made a move to the Bundesliga, but came back. Columbus Crew. By the time 2002 rolled around, he was in Major League Soccer. And of course, Brian McBride is considered one of the best U.S. men's national team players of all time. Very technically gifted forward. And of course, people remember him from his time in Fulham. But let's also remember Columbus Crew. It is what it is, right? This guy right here. By the time 2006 rolled around, New England Revolution came through the college system. Made the 2006 World Cup team before getting the move overseas. Then he came back. Right? There is historical context here. There is historical context. By the way, the 2006 World Cup team, 11 members of Major League Soccer. And this was a time when Major League Soccer was actually at its all-time worst. This is pre-Beckham, post when Phil Anschutz, the owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, and the other guy, Lamar Hunt, essentially bought the entire league to keep it afloat. This was arguably, a period of Major League Soccer where it was the absolute worst. And yet still, it didn't matter. It didn't matter the level of talent. What mattered was minutes. The only time, by the way, where there was less than, it happened twice, but really the only time that there was less than 10 members of Major League Soccer on a World Cup roster happened 4 years later in 2010. Where only 3 made the World Cup roster. But still, the 3 that made it were integral parts of it. Let me pull it up real quick. Jonathan Bornstein made it. Edson Buttle made it. Landon Donovan made it. There were 4 members, and Robbie Finley made it. Again, key members, though. And by the way, part of the leadership group of 2010. 2014, by the way, 2014, here's the interesting thing, right? Because Jurgen Klinsmann was anti-Major League Soccer. As a matter of fact, he was upset that Clint Dempsey came back. He was upset that Michael Bradley came back. Josie Altidore came back. A lot of their key core contributors came back. And Jurgen Klinsmann was upset. He was vocal about young players making the move overseas. And by the way, that was one of the biggest reasons why he got fired. Because he wouldn't play along. But even in that World Cup, with the introduction to dual nationals, John Brooks, Fabian Johnson, Jermaine Jones, although Jermaine came a little earlier, and then of course Julian Green. Even in the midst of the first introduction of dual nationals, 10 members of Major League Soccer made that World Cup roster, including the right back, former Seattle Sounder, plays for FC Cincinnati. Jesus Christ, why can't I think of his name right now? We'll pull it up. And of course, those guys that I just listed before that came back. And oh, by the way, Kyle Beckerman made that. Kyle Beckerman made his first World Cup roster. Same with Matt Beasler. Brad Davis made it. Shit, Mix Diskerud made that team. Omar Gonzalez. Yeah, DeAndre Yevon. Oh, yeah, by the way, Nick Raimondo made that team with Chris Wondolowski and Graham Zusi. So this is nothing new. And this is the interesting thing. Historical context matters. Because this year, 2025, started with Camp Cupcake, where this guy was thrust onto the scene. I think a lot of people were calling for it because of the snub in the 2024 Olympic Games. They didn't even actually name him to the active roster. He was considered an alternate, and he turned it down. which was the right move. But he gets called into Camp Cupcake, and of course he gets the broken nose. And from that point, he is essentially featured in every camp this year. There are attributes that certain players have, and when you think about the the core of this current national team, and you look at some of the players that we actually hold in high regard, you wonder whether or not a dude like I'll say it, man. You wonder whether a dude like Christian Roldan would actually take a knock to the nose, stuff cotton up his nose, and go out there and continue to play. Chances are pretty good that's not going to happen. And so these are certain qualities that certain players have. I don't know if he's going to make the World Cup roster, Diego, but that being said, you can understand why Pochettino keeps bringing him in, keeps rewarding him. Also, this guy featured, Jack McGlynn, who, by the way, if you ask me, I don't think Jack McGlynn should be a part of the World Cup roster. I don't think his strongest attributes. Minimize his biggest weaknesses. And oh, by the way, he's not fast. And in the World Cup, you're going to need it. But that being said, I also think back to 2014 in the inclusion of a guy like Graham Zusi, who had an absolute killer left foot. And we were sold that Zusi was going to be on that team because of his ability to take set pieces and his ability to whip a ball in the box. And he could play multiple positions, right? There was a lot of controversy because certain names were on that World Cup roster while certain names were omitted. But that being said, there are going to be spots on World Cup rosters that are going to be able to facilitate certain roles. But that being said, Pochettino rewards people, which is why a guy like Max Starfson continues to get called in, why Alex Freeman continues to get called in. They're being rewarded. But that being said, let's also understand a few things. And this is the biggest reason why Mauricio Pochettino was hired, okay? And it wasn't to streamline the process from the youth teams to the first teams. That's not why he's here. He is also not here to recruit dual nationals. And that's the thing. It's like you look at Twitter and you'll see Tactical Manager TV. You'll see 11 Yanks. You'll see the American Ultras. All of those guys are great. Love their guys' opinion. But it almost feels like, they're preaching to the choir. How come they haven't brought in, Luca Kolyosho? How come they haven't brought in the other guy that plays in the Bundesliga? I forget his name right now. Let me look him up real quick. Because that's not his job. The interesting thing about this is that Mauricio Pochettino was brought in because the powers that be at US Soccer said, listen, we feel that this core right now that competed in 2022 is good enough to get to a quarterfinal or a semifinal. US Soccer has dubbed it, has deemed it that this core is the best core in the history of the national team. They're so confident of the talent of this team that they went out and hired Mauricio Pochettino because they felt like they had the nucleus. And that's why he was hired. Mauricio is not going to waste time chasing dual nationals. That's not why he's here. Sorry. It's just not why he's here. He is here to build a roster and take it to the World Cup and hopefully do well. Which is why what's funny is I found it so funny that half our fan base, and of course it's the Euro snob half. Yeah, there's happy clappers. There's MLS happy clappers as well too. Let's not get twisted. Guys that think that Jordan Morris should probably be given a look over the course of his last year and a half. Yeah, I don't think so. But this year, especially 2025, he already knows who his best 15 players are. He knows it. He knows exactly who his best 15 players are. But yet, he probably knows who his best, let's be honest, right? He probably knows who his best 20 players are. And we can just name them right now. And we probably all agree with it. But we have expanded rosters. We have a 26-man roster. And there are going to be times at the World Cup, and of course, you guys would probably agree with me. And again, I go all the way back to 1989. That was my first game, the U.S. versus Trinidad, to qualify for Italia 90. I remember watching that game on ESPN. I watched the 3 games in 90. I watched the 94 Cup. I've seen this national team for years now. And in every major tournament, there is always a few different games where there's going to be certain skill sets that are required to either finish off a match or to hang on for dear life. And that's exactly what Mauricio Pochettino is doing with 2025. He's not ignoring the European player pool. He knows who Christian Pulisic is. He knows what Weston McKennie is going to be able to do. He knows Mark McKenzie. It's not about that. It is about finding a diamond in the rough. It's about finding 3 to 4 players that he can absolutely trust and that he would not have a problem carrying at the World Cup. Because when he looks down at his bench and he needs somebody to come in to either kill off a victory or, because we know this as well too, that there's going to be times where we're tied 1-1 and there's 15 minutes left and he needs to bring in somebody to ensure that they hang on for dear life so they don't lose the result. And there's going to be certain players that are going to be able to carry that skill set, and Pochettino understands that there are certain players whose games are not liabilities. And that is what he's doing. It's the Tristan Blackmans of the world. It's the Sebastian Berhalters. It's the Jack McGlynn's, the Alex Freemans, the Max Arstons of the world. Listen, man, he knows that John Tolkien's a better left back. He knows it. He knows it. It's not even up for a debate. And chances are pretty good. Chances are pretty good when the entire first team is in camp. The entire first team. We're going to see it. By the way, Mauricio Pochettino is not going to leave certain guys off the World Cup roster to make an example. His name is attached to this national team. 100%. He understands that the player pool is shit. He knows it. There's really not a lot of depth on this team. And he knows that Major League Soccer also is shit, but of course he is not going to say it because they're paying him $6.5 million. But that being said, he was hired to put together a World Cup team and try to get this team either into the quarterfinals or into the semifinals. That's his job. And that is the reason why we have to talk about this guy right here, Cristian Roldan. Because it is a curious case. There was a reason why he was brought in during the September friendlies. And a lot of people think that it was based off the League Cup final and the way that he was essentially draped off the back of Messi. He played well, by the way. But it's also the recognition of the leadership. And leadership is a huge quality. Huge, huge quality. It's one of the things that we don't have. Seriously, ask yourself this question. Is Christian Pulisic a leader? Is Pulisic a leader? Or is he just a gifted goal scorer? Will people follow Christian Pulisic? Or is he the type of guy that you count on for goals, assists? There is a difference, by the way. Is Tim Ream a leader? Is Tyler Adams a leader? I mean, they talk a great game in the media. They talk a beautiful game in the media, by the way. But are these guys, by the way, is Tim Ream and Tyler Adams saying the exact same shit that they say to the media? Are they saying that in the clubhouse? Are they actually holding some of these players accountable? Fuck no. Fuck no. They're not. They're passive. It's not their style. That's the thing. It's like every time I see Tyler Adams or Tim Ream talk, I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. Because I know for a fact that you do not have the sack to say the same shit in the clubhouse to any of those guys, especially if you have a bad game. Are you the first one to hold yourself accountable? Or as a collective, do you guys just say, well, that sucked, and then we'll come back in a couple days and we'll try again? That's the biggest problem. Leadership. These guys are entitled. None of them hold themselves accountable. And that's a big problem. That is the biggest reason what is separating this group of players from World Cup rosters of season past, because there was always a group of leaders that had no problem telling a young Landon Donovan in 2002 to shut the fuck up and play football. That shit's not going to fly here. That ego, not going to fly. Same thing in 2006. Even though it wasn't a great World Cup, with a young, cocky dude like Clint Dempsey on that roster, there were plenty of people to tell him to shut the fuck up. That's not going to fly. And eventually those two became leaders. By the time 2010, 2014 rolled around, those guys were leaders. Who are the leaders on the squad? Who are the ones that are going to tell these entitled players to shut the fuck up? We're here to win. And oh, by the way, when we're playing continental championships, Nations League Gold Cup, we expect you to be here because we expect to win. Nobody says that. What's up, Nate Holloway? Good to see you, man. Rhode Island FC, RIFC till I die, man. You know what I'm thinking about doing, by the way, Nate? I'm thinking about potentially getting a Rhode Island jersey. I'm thinking about doing it. I want to check out their kits and see what they look like, man. But it's true, right? So who is that leader? Who is that guy who is going to keep his mouth shut to the media, but on the pitch and in the clubhouse, he's going to say, fuck all that noise. I'm here to win. This is a home World Cup. This is something completely different. Like, we have a responsibility here. Who is that leader? In my mind, it's not Christian. It's not Tyler. It's not Tim Ream. Who is it? Is it Chris Richards? Does Chris Richards have the cachet to not only hold himself accountable, but also to tell other players, you played like shit? And that is the thing that this team sorely needs. And that's why I always bring up Cristian Roldan's name. It's not because of his football, although his football is not a liability at the international level. He's been there and done it. And oh, by the way, it's 4 years later. He's 30 years old. He is in the prime of his career. And he's in form. And oh, by the way, he's a fucking winner. Seriously, he's a fucking winner. Let's pull it up real quick. Let's pull this up real quick, because I think it's important for you guys to get the depth and the magnitude of what Cristian Roldan is worth, not just to the Sounders, but also to the success of that team. He came to the Sounders in 2015. The very next year, he wins his first MLS Cup. One year later, wins league title. By the way, from 2016 to 2020, he appears in 4 MLS Cups and wins 2. One of the greatest stretches in MLS history. And oh, by the way, then he follows that up by winning the CONCACAF Champions League. And this year he wins Leagues Cup. He's essentially won every major trophy along the way, and he's been steady. Now, he's not the type of player that's going to light the stat sheet. That's not him. But he is the type of player that gets into Chris Richards' face, gets into Tyler Adams' face against Japan, doesn't give a shit if it's against a B team, but fuck all the noise. We're here to win. There's a sense of accountability. And he gets that from João Paulo. He gets that from Brian Schmetzer. All the bullshit to the side. We're here to do a job. So let's fucking do it. There was a reason why he was on the last World Cup squad, and a lot of it had to do with his leadership. And we know that Mauricio Pochettino likes to reward certain players. It's the only reason, it's the only thing that makes sense that Sebastian Berhalter continues to get called in. It's the only reason. And I think those days are over. Specifically for Sebastian Berhalter. Maybe Jack gets continued to call in. Maybe maybe Freeman, misses the October window because of the MLS playoffs. So I think a lot of those guys probably won't be there. Which is, you're going to see potentially, Marlon Fossey come in. You're going to potentially see John Tolkien come in this time, which is good because they need minutes with the national team. But that being said, there are always going to be certain spots on the roster that get taken by a guy like Cristian Roldan. Either it's because of injury, or in this case, we just don't have leadership. And he doesn't care. That's the beautiful part about a dude like Cristian Roldan. He just doesn't care about the fact that you're a superstar. Does not give a shit. He is there to win. Because that's all he's done. And now that he's in his 30s, there is a leadership factor that we have to consider. And when you look at this team that is devoid of any type of leadership, that might be worth its weight in gold. Now, here's the rub, though. Here's the rub. Historically, he's a 6. He's a CDM. In Seattle, he kind of plays an 8. He's kind of more of a box-to-box, kind of roams a little higher up the pitch. But with the national team, he's probably a 6. This is where the rub is. If you ask me, Tyler Adams is probably going to be on. You can write Tyler Adams' name into the roster right now. And if you ask me, would I take Cristian Roldan or Tanner Tessman right now? I'm taking Tanner Tessman, 100%. If you ask me if I'm taking Cristian Roldan or Johnny Cardoso, I'm probably taking Johnny Cardoso. If you ask me, do I want Cristian Roldan or Aiden Morris? Again, talent-wise, I'm probably taking Aiden Morris. Let's just be honest. Playing at a higher level, they're playing better. But again, let's say that this is what we're playing now. We're playing in a 3-4-2-1. And we're playing with 2 6s and 2 high 10s. So let's say we're carrying 4 6s. 4 6s, 2 8s, and then three, four tens, and a couple strikers. And of course, we have our wingbacks to provide with to provide width. If you're saying that one of those guys are out, and now you have to pick, that's where Cristian Roldan comes in, and you get the fact that he's a leader, and you get the fact that his play is, it's not a liability. His play right now is better than what Sebastian Berhalter provides, better than Luca Della Torre, better than Jack McGlynn, because he actually can play those positions too. I don't think he makes it as an 8. As a matter of fact, I think the only 2 8s, the traditional box to box that actually make this team are going to be Wes and Yunus Musa. I don't think those guys can be left out. And of course, both Yunus and Wes can play multiple positions. So at that point, you don't have to bring 4 wingbacks. You can bring 2 or 3, and you're covered on that. You're covered on either side. But you're probably going to need a rotation of 6s. And I probably would assume that Mauricio Pochettino was quite impressed with the play of Cristian Roldan. I would not be surprised if he's called into the October and November camps along with the first team to see what it looks like. It's one thing to see it with, half of a Gold Cup squad. We'll see. We'll see whether or not he comes in because, of course, MLS playoffs are coming up. And I don't necessarily think that he wants to disrupt, the Sounders trying to go for a double. So maybe it's actually going to be next year. We'll see. We'll see. But again, man, historically speaking, this is not a Mauricio Pochettino issue. I know a lot of people are dealing with recency bias, and they literally want to, pin it on Mauricio, like he's like in the back pocket of Major League Soccer, or he's got to deal with an MLS quota. That's not the case. I guarantee you, Mauricio Pochettino thinks Major League Soccer is shit. But of course, he's not going to say it. I wouldn't either. You're being paid $6.5 million. But that being said, his job is to put together a World Cup squad. And so he's going to look. You have a domestic league for a reason. You're going to see. You're going to see if there's any diamonds in the rough. It's the reason why, fucking Graham Zusi made this team. It's a reason why, fucking Chris Wondolowski and DeAndre Yedlin, fucking Brad Davis, Matt Beasler, Kyle Beckerman. I'm sure at the time we were probably throwing out other names that potentially were in Europe. But that being said, there is something, there are intangibles that coaches actually prefer. And again, there's going to be situations in World Cup matches that are going to require an even head. And it's going to require leadership to pull it off. And when you look at this team, even when our best players are out there, let me ask you this question. Do you have confidence in this team, this group of players, this core being able to pull that off against a good team? If it's 1-1 and we're playing, I don't know, England, Wales, the Netherlands, Italy, any good African nation, South Korea, it's kind of, you're kind of taking a gamble. And so you're probably going to want guys who have been there and done that and know how to win those type of games. And that's why a guy like Cristian Roldan comes into play a little bit. And that's, to me, I think that's worth its weight in gold, because you can bring him on the pitch, and his defense is rock solid, and his forward movement, his passes coming off the half turn are not a liability. Now, some people will say, well, we got Jedi Robinson who plays in the Premier League. We got Tyler that plays in the Premier League. but they're not captains or assistant captains. They're good players, sure, and they know how to win those type of games in the Premier League. They don't know how to win them on the international stage. Well, neither does Christian. But that being said, you're going to want to bring as many leaders as you possibly can. It's funny to me though, and I guess, and again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure you do hit that like and subscribe button. I find it funny that Jurgen Klinsmann was a guy who, from the off, literally talked shit about Major League Soccer. And he was right, because back in 2012, 2013, we didn't have Atlanta, we didn't have the other LA team, we didn't have Miami, we didn't have any of these type of teams here. I think it was a 17 team league at that point. Let's find out. Because expansion happened pretty quick. Yeah, there was 10 teams in the East, 9 teams in the West. So yeah, there was 19. It was a 19-team league. That's right, because Vancouver had already come in, Portland had come in, Montreal had come in, and the Houston Dynamo were in the East. Yeah. And in 2013, four teams, maybe 5. The top 4 teams in the West were good, but it was a very weak league, and the same league that he was telling young prospects to get the fuck out of. And the veteran core that came back, and he was pissed off that they should have stayed. It's amazing that he took 10. He took 10 to Brazil. That's wild. And I'm trying to think who of the guys who went overseas. I don't think Beasler went overseas. I don't think Davis went overseas. Omar Gonzalez, I think, did. Ramondo, no. Wondolowski, no. Yedlin, yes. Zuzi, no. So I think maybe 2 of the 10 eventually made their way overseas that were good enough. But that being said, a lot of people think that 2014 team, talent-wise, was the best World Cup squad we had. I actually disagree. I disagree. I still think it's 2002. I think Jonathan in 2010, let's see, Josie was in the championship. DeMarcus was with Rangers. Yeah, Bradley was with Borussia Mönchengladbach. There's a lot of guys that were in the Bundesliga. A couple of guys were in Scotland. A couple of guys were in the Premier League. All of them, by the way, most of our keepers that cycle were in the Premier League. I think Stuart Holden was with Bolton. And I forgot Jonathan Spector was on that team, yeah. But for the most part, talent-wise, 2002 was probably the best. But as far as introductions for Major League Soccer, there was only 3 on that 2010 roster. I don't have a problem if it's 80, 85, 90% European, because again, our best players are over there. And I think Maurizio knows it. But with the expanded rosters, that's what's going on this season. He's trying to find a diamond in the rough. I don't believe in an MLS quota. Never really have. But we have a domestic league. We have a domestic top flight. So you better find out if there's anybody there that is capable, that you can trust. Berhalter did it. Jurgen did it. Bradley did it. What was it? Bruce Arena did it twice, potentially 3 times. And what was it? Samson in '98 certainly did. Samson took, what, 16 MLS players in the '98 World Cup squad? Yeah. This is the reality. This is the reality. And I don't have a problem with it because I know exactly how this is going to play out. I know exactly how this is going to play out. Because if you've noticed that as these windows continue to get to World Cup 2026, the opposition is getting better. This window, we have what? We have Ecuador and Australia, 2 teams that will be there in 2026. And then the next window, it gets incredibly tough. Paraguay, Uruguay. There is no way that he's bringing a roster that is going to, feature more than four MLS players. Obviously the keepers, because they're all there. And maybe Tim Ream, and name your token MLS midfielder. But for the most part, you're going to see the names that we expect: Balogun, Pepe, Sargent, Pulisic, Wright, Weah, Tillman, probably Gio. We'll see how that turns out. Aronson, Brendan. You're probably going to see McKennie and Musa. You're going to see Tyler, Tessman, depending on Cardoso. And if not, you're going to see Morris, and then you're going to see Cameron Carter-Vickers, Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream, probably Austin Trusty if he's available. And you're going to see both Serginho Dest, and you're going to see Anthony Robinson, and you're going to see either one of Marlon Fossey or Brian Reynolds that's over there in the Belgian Pro League, and you're going to see probably John Tolkien from Holstein Kiel. Why wouldn't you? You're playing what? Find out. Let's find out. Let's turn to the ELO rankings real quick. By the way, Ecuador is from the ELO rankings, Ecuador right now is the ninth team in the world. Uruguay is the 11th. And Paraguay is number 21. And this last window, we beat the number 15 team, and they dropped. And we're sitting at number 45 in the ELO rankings, and that seems about right. Georgia is ahead of us, and Algeria is behind us. Wales is ahead of us. Panama is ahead of us. Scotland. Canada. Mexico, obviously. Yeah. It is what it is, right? So obviously we're going to be in a position where I think Mauricio Pochettino has seen exactly what he's needed to see out of MLS, and he knows the names that are probably going to be a part of the upcoming windows. The window in 2026 where we're playing Portugal, and of course, the World Cup roster. I think he already knows who those MLS names are and the ones that he can trust. And I wouldn't be surprised if Diego Luna is one of those names. The question is who's the other? Is it McGlynn? Don't know. Is it Arfston? Makes sense. considering he's gushed over him. But that being said, I don't necessarily think that's necessarily a bad, a bad decision to have, especially if you're playing a back three. Now you're certainly not going to give Arston a run, but that being said, you've seen him now, and now it's time to give a dude like John Tolkien run. It's time to bring McKinney back in and let him prove otherwise. Same thing with Yunus Musa. There's a lot of guys that probably want to get back in so they can remind them just exactly the talent that they possess. I think we're going to see it. And I think by the time that we hit Portugal next year, I think it's going to be obvious. But that being said, there are certain players in Major League Soccer that do possess certain qualities that Pochettino will bring to the World Cup because of leadership, because of trust, and because their game is not a liability. And I would not be surprised if that guy is on the World Cup roster. Would not be surprised. And again, there are 3 or 4 other dudes that I would rather have instead of him. But if he is on the World Cup roster, I'll be the first one supporting that idea. Not because I'm just a Seattle Sounders honk or a homer, although I am. But that being said, I also watch soccer. I also watch a lot of soccer, and I can tell you emphatically, and especially with this U.S. men's national team, this version. And by the way, I don't see this shit getting better by 2030, by the way. That because this team is entitled, and because we have a group of players that feel like they don't have to listen, you're going to need players that have no problem pulling the cards of the big superstars. You're going to need at least a group of players that have no problem pulling somebody aside and saying, you know what, your performance was shit. Like, I don't give a shit if you had to travel 16 hours away from Italy to come here. When you put it on, you take it seriously and you play to win. At the very least, that is what Cristian Roldan will do. And by the way, he did it against Japan too. He had no problem getting in the face of Chris Richards and Tyler Adams. I like it. All right, guys. That's going to do it for me. I definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Nate Holloway because my brother always coming strong with Rhode Island FC. For those that don't know, obviously, he is a fan of the championship side, USL championship side, Rhode Island FC, and I love it. I love the fact that we have USL championship dudes in this one. And of course, my guy, Adrian, Spurs Diehards TTID. And of course, by the way, if you guys are Tottenham Hotspur fans, Tottenham Hotspur supporters here in the States, of course, I do a little Tottenham Hotspur content myself, but head on over to Spurs Diehards TTID and give Adrian and Drew a follow, man. Those guys are awesome. But I also want to thank everybody who is tuning in themselves and just listening. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons because, man, let me tell you, this channel is growing. Of course, we just eclipsed 300. We haven't even been around for a year yet. So, man, I'm pretty happy. And, of course, this thing will continue to grow. Look at it, man. We got Rich Rod, man. Rich Rod 908. Freeze got smoked by Messi. Hey, by the way, who does not get smoked by Messi? I mean, that's not an indictment on Matt Freeze, man. Every goalie in this league has gotten smoked by Messi. Some more than others, especially in the Eastern Conference. But by the way, if the powers that be decided that Matt Freeze wasn't worth the money, they wouldn't have given the extension. And I think it was an extension that was well earned. But that being said, man, the other thing, by the way, just quickly, real quick, that extension to me protects NYCFC and Major League Soccer in case World Cup 2026 happens and he is one of the best goaltenders, one of the best keepers in the tournament. and he puts on a show, especially in the penalty kick department, and some team from Europe says, "I want that guy." What this contract does is it protects their bottom line. Yes, Matt Freese gets paid, but it also means that his value actually goes sky high. And so any team that wants to come in for him is going to have to pay a premium. But congratulations, Matt Freese, on the contract extension. And don't worry about getting smoked by Messi. Every goaltender he's done that to pretty much every goalkeeper. I'm just a Red Bull fan who's hating on NYCFC. Yeah, listen. By the way, I also am not a fan of NYCFC either. Here's the weird thing about the Red Bulls. I don't hate the New York Red Bulls. RBNY, they're just a team that's around to me. But I will give them credit. They know how to get to the playoffs. They've done it every year for 12 years, something like that. They just consistently, even when their team isn't great, they still find a way to consistently get into the tournament. And at least from a consistency standpoint, you have to respect it. Me personally, I'm a Seattle Sounders fan, so I know for a fact we're going to win the double this year. And I'm sure that's going to piss off, by the way, it will piss off other American soccer fans because apparently, and I don't know why, but apparently everyone hates the Sounders. True. But that being said, we're going to win the double this year. They are borderline out right now. Yeah, I saw that actually. Before I go, just let me check this out real quick. Let me see this real quick. Yeah. They are 2 points below the drop. I cannot believe the Chicago Fire are looking like they're going to get to the playoff game, but what I really can't believe is that Columbus is also in that territory. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that are going to move between now and the end of the season. But that being said, man, yeah, when you lose your striker, the guy who essentially accounted for I'm going to say a good 60% of their goal production, and you move them on to Spain and you don't replace them effectively, that's the type of shit that's going to happen. Because now you got to find goals from somewhere else. But Nashville's solid. Orlando City's always solid. Charlotte, fuck Charlotte. And fuck none of those teams in the East I like. None of those teams really. Let's be honest, man. None of those teams are likable, except for Montreal. They're likable because they're shitty, and you kind of want to root for them. But that being said, fuck DC, fuck Atlanta, seriously, fuck Toronto. And fuck New England, but I hope Matt Turner does well there. And the New York Red Bulls are the Red Bulls. I don't mind the Red Bulls. They got Thierry at one point. Let's see. In the West, San Diego FD, 1 point over Vancouver. It's weird. I'm a Seattle Sounders fan, but I'm curiously rooting for the Whitecaps. I wouldn't mind seeing the Whitecaps finish this one off. They've been good consistently all throughout. Same with San Diego. But it looks like Vancouver's got a game in hand. Minnesota, fuck Minnesota too. And LAFC, yeah, that team turned around after Sun got here. Then you have the Sounders. Yeah, they kind of fallen off a little bit in the last three. Austin, Portland, fuck Portland. Colorado, I'm kind of rooting for. FC Dallas, good for Dallas. Currently holding on to the two wild card spots playing. Then you have the Dynamo, San Jose, who I thought was potentially going to, work their way into a playoff spot. One of those two wild card spots. I thought Bruce kind of had turned things around there, but god damn it, 14 losses. And then Real Salt Lake is the big one. 10 wins, but 16 losses. Yeah, fuck St. Louis Sporting and the LA Galaxy. By the way, that makes me the happiest. Seeing the LA Galaxy in last place. People just hate the Sounders because their fans go to the It's true. Although that might not be the case. That might not be. If you guys have been paying attention for the last couple of years, the Sounders, their season ticket base has actually dipped. And I think there's an issue with the Emerald City supporters. And I think I know what that is as well, too. Obviously, the ticket hikes have not helped. And I'll be the first one to say it. I think they've raised season tickets, like I want to say by a good 15% over the last 5 years. And so now it's kind of expensive. I think the Apple deal definitely killed momentum for the Sounders. I also think I think COVID had an effect. But really, and it's weird, but I think that in a weird turn of events, I think the ECS turns off single game ticket buyers from coming to the match, because they are if somebody wants to bring their kid to the match and watch, and then you have to deal with the bullshit of the Emerald City supporters. Families are just turned off. They're not going to pay that, to sit there and look at, political signage and statements. It just is what it is. And, when I was down in Florida, watching Seattle get their heads crushed in to Inter Miami, that certainly seemed the case with the local Inter Miami families that were coming to the match just to see Messi. The last thing they wanted to deal with are out of town supporters that are, putting up their political signage. A lot of that shit got taken down. So it is what it is. But that being said, I will say that potentially this weekend we're going to be doing an MLS live stream. We haven't done that in a little bit, just because of the schedule. We had Leagues Cup, and then after that we were doing my schedule got a little packed. But that being said, as I look at this thing for this week, you guys tell me. What do you guys want me to cover? So we have Toronto hosting Inter, New England's hosting Atlanta. That seems kind of garbage. Philly's at DC. Montreal's at Charlotte. Oh, we have the New York Derby, NYCFC versus NYRB. Maybe I'll do that one. Saturday, 7:30. Columbus, Chicago, although that one's a good one too. Dynamo, Nashville. LAFC's in St. Louis. Austin versus Real Salt Lake is kind of a tasty one too. I'm not going to lie. Minnesota, Colorado is a good one too. Dallas is in Portland. Sporting is playing the Galaxy. San Jose is in San Diego, and Vancouver is in Seattle. Saturday, 10:30. God damn it! I kind of want to do that one, man. Seattle versus Vancouver. That is a tasty one, but I'm not staying up till 10:30. So it looks like I might be doing NYCFC versus the New York Red Bulls, and I think that is Saturday at 7:30 Eastern. That might be the one that I do. Let's see. Red Bulls games are so sad now. Stands are so empty. Henri days, they were pretty full. They need to change the Tri-State Red Bulls. Turn to the Tri-State Red Bulls. Yeah. The interesting thing is, Jersey has always been a very good spot for soccer in the United States. I'm sure you know the history with Kearney, New Jersey, and the guys that came out of Kearney to help the 90 team qualify. Of course, Tab, Tony, John Harkes was a part of that as well too. And of course, Kearney still is a huge soccer hotbed. And of course, I think Red Bull Arena is certainly pretty close to there as well too. It should be MLS teams need to do a better community outreach. I'll just say that, right? They need to embrace the communities in which they live, and do a better job of reaching out to clubs, youth clubs. They have to do a better job. And the interesting thing about it is NYRB is right there, literally on the doorstep of one of the biggest soccer hotbeds in the United States. And it almost feels like they just don't give a shit. Let's see. New Yorkers went to NYCFC. Yeah, that's their team. That's their team. I would agree with you, man. A name change would be kind of cool. The Tri-State Red Bulls, I don't think they're going to do that. They're going to keep the New York, obviously, for marketing reasons. But that being said, you're absolutely right. Jersey, that's Jersey's team. And again, it's kind of sad considering that, the Red Bulls had some really good teams in the past. And, they did some really good stuff back in the day. But lately, they have done absolutely jack shit for that New Jersey community. And it would be nice. It would be nice to see them do a lot of good stuff, a lot of community outreach, bring players to schools and introduce the players to the youth, right? Let them get excited. Let those players be that, that stepping stone, right? Give them an actual goal to reach. Like, you can actually get here. Without a doubt, that would be something that would like there. By the way, there are certain teams that do that. I'm not saying that every Major League Soccer team doesn't do that. There are, but there's not enough of them that are actually, knee deep into their community. They're just essentially taking them for granted. You're right. Part of Jersey, big Portuguese, Colombian fan base who all love soccer. They need to reach out to them and be like, hey, yeah. Absolutely. Also, but what's actually killing them as well too? Two things that are killing MLS teams, and it's pretty simple. Number one, ticket prices. That's number one. They're I would be in favor if they did like a sliding scale, like a sliding scale, ticket price. Major League Baseball kind of does this as well too, where they charge the most for premium opponents like the Yankees or the Red Sox, the Cubs, or whatever the case may be, Dodgers. But when you're playing the Kansas City Royals or you're playing the Oakland A's, tickets are super goddamn cheap. Like you probably could get away with that. Like when Messi comes to New York, you can charge top dollar. Or LAFC comes, you can charge top dollar. But when Sporting fucking Kansas City comes, when Nashville comes, no disrespect to Nashville, when FC Dallas comes, maybe not price gouge. But also the other thing that's killing Major League Soccer teams right now is the Apple deal. Nobody is going to pay the freight for MLS season pass. It's just not going to happen. It's like at the beginning of the season, I think it's like 100 and something. Maybe you wait until the summer like I did, and then when I got it, it was like $15 the rest of the season. But at the start of the season, that's not going to happen. And of course, I back in Seattle when the Sounders first came out, they were on regional TV. I think they were like on King 5, Kong 616, and you know what? They were always on. And if you missed it, they played the replay on Root Sports. So there was always an opportunity to watch them. And I think they were on regional TV for a very, very, very long time. And you know what? They were popular and they drew ratings for the first decade. But that being said, it's like, if you want to see them, you got to either pay the freight for tickets or you got to get the Apple deal. There is no other way around it unless you're obviously, illegally streaming. I did that for a while. I'll be the first one to admit. Also, free academies, and not just what 14, 13, 12. This thing's got to go all the way down to U8s. Free academies. Honestly, stadium's so empty. They would probably make out selling $10 tickets and making, yeah. And again, what's interesting about it is that was the appeal when Major League Soccer first started growing. Like back in 2008, 2009, 2010. And then the next 5 years as the expansion era grew, tickets were still affordable. And I think it ended up being like you can get a season ticket at Lumen Field for the Sounders, and I think your season ticket, I think it was like equated to like, I don't know, $30 a ticket. And you can just show up match day and buy tickets, and you can bring your entire family of four, and you weren't necessarily spending hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. It was actually affordable. And now it's absolutely not. Parking, concessions, not a thing anymore with Major League Soccer. As a matter of fact, that ticket that I bought at Chase Field down in Miami was $75. In the away supporter section, $75. Essentially, it's like you're charging like, Premier League prices for, MLS quality. It's not as excessive as the Premier League, but that being said, it's pretty lofty. And by the way, man, there's no fever pitch for Major League Soccer right now because they can't watch them. They're behind a paywall. Nobody's going to pay it, and so if they don't know what's going on and they're not following it, why would they go see it? And I think they kind of got that one wrong. I'll be the first one to say it. All right, man. I'm going to take off. I do. By the way, I can talk for days when it comes with Major League Soccer and the problem with U.S. Soccer, and of course we're going to continue doing those shows as well too. Rich Rod 908. Thank you for stopping by, man. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Again, I want to thank Nate Holloway, who's always coming in hot from Rhode Island. Obviously, RIFC till he dies. Rhode Island FC, of course, in the championship. Me personally, I'm all about Detroit City FC because, of course, man, I'm in the fighting town of Flint, Michigan, and I support my local clubs, man. And of course, we have Adrian from Spurs Diehards TTID. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, and of course, we will be back on the weekend with our weekend content, and of course, that is Premier League Tottenham Hotspur content, and of course, we do a watch along Saturday. I think it's actually Saturday afternoon. On Saturday, and of course, we have the pre-match build-up on Friday. And then Saturday night, I'm thinking about doing an MLS live stream, but of course, we will have next week content on Tuesday. I actually welcome a guest, my guy Trevor, and of course he you can find him on X at USMNT Trevor. He's coming on Tuesday, and I'm working on some big guests as well too because I like having them on. But I think for the Tuesday show, I'm going to be more inclined to bring on USMNT guests. Monday, of course, we have USMNT Yanks Abroad as we recap the weekend that was for USMNT pool players in Europe. So that's going down Monday, I believe, at 6. And then, of course, Tuesday, it's going to be at 6 o'clock as well, too. So that should be fun. And, of course, every weekend, man, you can catch me geeking out to Tottenham Hotspur football because that's just me, bud. That's just me. I love Spurs, and I will continue to root for Spurs. But that being said, man, I kind of like Crystal Palace. They're kind of nice. All right, guys, you guys enjoy your evening, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care, guys. Have a good night. Bye.